Hey friends, welcome Team Live. If you are here and you are here now, please comment hashtag Team Live. I see there's already a few people doing so. Nice to see you, Jennifer, Brooke, Disa, and Lindsay. And if you are joining us in the future, go ahead and comment hashtag Team Replay down below. Today we are working on our staple tees, and it's really like where we're at right now is we have cast off our staple tee and we are doing the finishing touches. So today we are focusing on weaving in ends strategically to fix any gaps or holes. And I'm teaching you and just kind of showing how I like to whip stitch folded hems. So we've got some fun things going on today to make our tees look nice and like professionally finished, or as good as we can get them before we go to block them. And I'll give you some tips on blocking too, or answer any blocking questions you may have. But I'm really excited. Oh, it's so nice to see some people here. Starship Craft Room, nice to see you. Deb, hello. And Josie, hello. Thanks for joining us. I feel like this is our core Team Live fam. So thank you all for being here again. Before we get started, the big announcement I want to say, well, reminders, I guess I should say, not really an announcement, is this is our last instructional knitting live stream of the knit along. Next week, we are doing just a little celebration and prizes. So super exciting that we're at the end already. Like, I feel like it really flew by. And with that being said, prizes will be handed out to those who have finished their staple tees and, or I guess I should say, people who are eligible to win prizes are those who have finished their staple tee and submitted the prize submission form. So that is linked in the description below. And I've been including it in our email reminders, and it's in the Discord. I'll make sure it's like pinned in the Discord so no one misses it. And the deadline to submit that is July 27th, 12 p.m. EST. Or not 12 p.m., sorry. 11:59 p.m. So literally end of day. I'm trying to give you guys as much time as I can to have you submit that prize submission form. Yeah, and really, I mean, I'm not going to be checking or like selecting winners until our live stream, which is on July 28th, 12 p.m. Our standard typical time. And on that, basically, I'm going to have like a randomized wheel, and I'll be selecting, pick number 1, pick number 2, pick number 3, and I think there's 4 different prizes, maybe 5. I got to double check that. But for however many prizes there are, I'll be randomly selecting those people. And the way it's going to go is that the person who gets picked first gets first dibs on their prize. The person who gets picked second gets second dibs, and so on. So hopefully people who get picked are able to get a prize that they're really excited about. Yeah, and I think that's it. So just make sure to fill out that prize submission form if you finish your tee, so that way you are eligible to win some really cool prizes. If you have any other questions about the knit along, I think that's all I had to share before we got started. But if you have any other questions, go ahead and comment them and I'll answer as we go. And also, just let me know how your day is going, because we're going to get started on weaving in ends and folding our hems. And I'm sure there'll be some time to chat and catch up during then. So please let me know how your day is going. I would love to hear about it. And you might notice, for me, we're doing some work in our bedroom. So you see some painter's tape up here. So I was working on that yesterday. Started painting the molding black. But realized we're getting our gross carpet replaced next week, or this week actually. And I realized that the carpet is impeding all of the molding, so I probably have to go back and touch it up. So I abandoned painting for now. So if you see that, that's what's going on. But fun house projects for me this weekend, and I'm feeling really good and energetic today. Yesterday, I literally just had to sit on the couch and knit all day pretty much because I was so grumpy. I'd be like, my partner would sneeze and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to kill you now. Like we were both on the same level too. We were just like so irritable, but I think we both got a good night's sleep and we're feeling really good today. And so I am ready to get started, but let me know how your weekend's going in the comments. Okay. I'm going to switch over to our little layout here. And as you can see, I cast off my Staple Tee. She is looking good. I'm really excited. I tried her on and she fits perfectly. She is, I keep saying she, but yeah, it's a little longer than my original Staple Tee that I did, which was quite cropped. And this length, when I tried it on, was perfect for being able to like tuck it into my jeans. I usually like to do a French tuck where you just like tuck one front part of the tee into your pants. And the drape was just so good. So I can't wait to finish this up. And thank you, Starship Craft Room. It's been so awesome seeing all of your tees as well in the Discord. And also as the prize submissions have been coming in, I've been taking a sneak peek at the photos there, and they all look so cool. But yeah, I'm really excited to wear this tee. It's definitely going to be a staple in my wardrobe. So here's what we're going to do. I have my tee already. What you're going to need with you, if you don't have it already, is a tapestry needle. Mine's a little bent, but it'll do the job. I have a pair of scissors. You might want some stitch markers with you if you're nervous about lining up your folded hems well. I'll show you a little trick on how you can use stitch markers to kind of keep you on track. And I think that's all you need. And I'm going to take a look at the pattern too, so we can see what the instructions say for folding hems. So I'm going to work on showing you how to fold a hem, starting with a sleeve. So I'm in the sleeve sections of the pattern, sleeve section. And I'm just going to read through the instructions here and then show you how to do it. So well, actually, let me also say, it does suggest a cast off loosely. I did a German twist cast off, which I have as part of the pattern for the staple skirt, which is a really stretchy cast off. And it was my first time trying it for a tee. So that's how I helped to make sure I cast off loosely, but I'm sure how you cast off was fine. Leave a tail that is twice the length of your cast off edge, plus about 6 inches. With your tee inside out, fold the bottom of the sleeve with the purl round on the right side, sitting at the very bottom of the sleeve. So I'm going to show you what that means. So we're going to turn our tees inside out. Oh, hit the mic. Sorry about that. And I'm going to make sure all of my ends are where they should be. My tail. I hate all these very long tails, but they are really handy, so you don't have to get a new piece of string when you go to fold your hems. Okay, so I've got my tee inside out, and now what I'm saying is to fold your hem along the purl ridge. So you see your purl ridge, and then you are going to basically be folding your hem this way, like that. Going back to the pattern. Using the long tail you left, whip stitch the folded section of the tee to create a folded sleeve cuff. Refer to whip stitch reference video in the technique section on page 8. So if you need further reference, you can go to page 8 and there's a video there to show you how to do that. And then repeat all the steps for the second sleeve. So you do the same thing for the folded hem on the bottom of your tee as well. But I'm going to adjust so that I'm looking at my folded edge like so. So this, let me see, I might need to adjust it. There we go. Okay, and to get started, I feel like getting started with your whip stitch, it's the hardest part. But all we do to get started is thread your tapestry needle with your long tail. And then what I like to do is to make sure you're starting like where you should be. You should be able to see there's quite a distinction between like your last row here and then your first row. Just to kind of help, this isn't really necessary, but what I like to do to make these a little bit more even is I will insert my tapestry needle through the top 2 legs of your first cast on stitch. So, or cast off stitch, my apologies. So this is my last cast off stitch. I'm going through from front to back the 2 legs of my first cast off stitch. And then same thing, going front to back through the 2 legs of my last cast off stitch, which I think is here. No, here. And then you do the same thing once more for the first cast off stitch, like so. From front to back through the 2 legs. And that just kind of connects it so it makes it a little bit more fluid in the round. Don't have to do that. Just a little step I like to take to make sure it's nice and even underneath, and helps you kind of as you are folding around. So after that's done, what I like to do is locate that first, the first column of stitches here. So this is my first column, I believe. Yeah, that looks like it. And then take a look at it on the back, flip it over, and you can kind of see my thumb here, right here, along these purl ridges that are all stacked on top of each other. And that's really the back end of this first column of stitches here, right here. So we flip it over, we can see that kind of column of purl ridges, purl bumps. And what I like to do is just count up it. So you'll count, so my first one is here. I'm going to count up it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And at 6, that's when I hit that purl ridge. And to make sure I am going exactly where I need to be for my, when I start whip stitching, is I'll go up 6 more. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to insert my tapestry needle through it from bottom up through that 6th purl bump. And that's going to be my first little stitch there. And that should be nice and even. It should be exactly where it needs to be, so all the stitches are lined up. And let me actually show you that one more time, because I know that's a little tricky. So just to repeat, you want to find, and this could be easier if you don't do the connection part that I did to make it all kind of seamless in the round on your cast off edge. But what I like to do is kind of locate your first column of stitches on the right side. Sometimes it helps if you put your thumbnail like right in the middle of that column stitch and then flip it over so you can like easily identify the purl bumps on the opposite side. And then you want to count those purl bumps up until your purl ridge. So for me, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until that purl ridge. And then I'm going to keep continuing to count up it until we get to the 6th above the purl ridge. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And at that 6th purl bump, I'm going to insert my tapestry needle from the bottom up, and then just pull up your tail that you're working with. And that should be nice and even. That should be exactly where you need to be. Okay. And you might notice, because we cast off, like we did the last few rows of our sleeve in our needle size 2, that when you actually pull it up, it's a little bit smaller and it helps to pull your folded hem under. So that's what's helping it to prevent from flaring out, because we did the last few rows in needle size 2 versus needle size 1 on the front side. So now what we do is, it's actually super easy. So what you do is you take your tapestry needle and insert it through the next cast off stitch. So my stitches might look a little different because I did that slightly different cast off method. So there's kind of like a little bump right here, but really what you're going to do is pick up, I like to pick up just the outside stitch, similar to what we did when we folded the collar. So you pick up the outside leg, or like the one that's closest to you on your cast off edge. So this would be the V, for example. Let me pull it a little closer. This would be the V. I'm picking up just this one, the one that's closest to me. And then you're going to go into the very next purl bump next to this one. So this was our first one. We're going to just move right on over and go through the second one. And you just keep going. So you'll go to your next cast off stitch. One thing that can be tricky for beginners is you might be tempted to go into the same stitch again, but just make sure you're going to a new cast off stitch when you go to do a new one. And then you go into the next purl bump there. So really it's very similar to like what we did the collar. Just think of it as zipping it up. You kind of need to match it 1-to-1. And to make this a little quicker, what I usually like to do is I'll put my needle in through the outside, or the one that's closest to me, the loop on the cast off stitch, and I'll go through the next purl bump at the same time and then just bring my needle through. So you just kind of keep going around, keep zipping it up. But what I encourage you to do also is pause and flip over your work and admire how pretty it looks, ideally. But also, if you notice that it starts leaning one way or another, this is looking okay right now. I almost look a little, yeah, no, it looks good. But if you start noticing your stitches start to lean, like basically you really want them to continue to look as straight as your original rows, right? But if you start to see it leaning one way or another, what you can do is either go into the same stitch again, like I just suggested that you shouldn't do, but you could go into the same stitch again and then go into the next purl bump, or you could go into a new stitch, new cast off stitch, and go into like skip a purl bump and go into the next one. But I really only suggest doing that if you really notice a lean. Otherwise, I really recommend you keep going. It should be all worked out. Like if you go 1-to-1 and if you match it up right, it should work out. But I mean, sometimes we might not go into the first row as we should. Like that can cause an issue. Like if we started off crooked, then it will keep making it crooked kind of thing. And if you don't want to take it all out again, then you can kind of course correct by adjusting where you insert your needle down here, like I was just giving you tips for. So I'm going to just keep zipping my way around because I would love to just finish the sleeve cuff with you guys live. So if you have any questions about whip stitching, now is a great time to put that in the chat. And I am going to start looking at you guys' chats that you've put in there so far. Although I have to say, it's quite difficult to do because unlike with knitting in the round, this does require a little bit more focus on my eyes. But I can take a moment to look into the chat. So, Busy Beaver Brook, we've been in a funky mood here too. Very restful weekend with lots of knitting. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, I think for us, like at least for me, during the week, the work week, I am always like go, go, go. Like, you know, I do my full-time job, I do New Wave knitting, I take care of the dog, I do the housework, especially working from home, you know, it's just kind of like bing, bing, boom. Like I'm just constantly on. And I don't really sit to rest until like 7 at night, I want to say. And I think just and I feel great doing it also during the week. Like I feel really productive. I feel really fulfilled and satisfied most days. Like they're good days, but just by the weekend, I'm just like so spent, I guess. And I just need to do nothing for a day and get a good night's sleep. And doing that can really change everything around. And I always found it kind of cheesy when people say this, but it's so true to just listen to your body for sure to what you need to do. But I'm sorry you've been in a funky mood too, Brooke. I hope that this restful weekend is curing you of the funky mood. Lindsay says, having a relaxing Sunday today after an active day biking yesterday. Glad I'm able to chill with this live stream. That's awesome, Lindsay. Tell us more about your bike ride. Where'd you go? Was it a cool bike path? I've been meaning to do some cool, like almost scenic biking in the DC area. I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, let us know more about your bike ride. Lisa says, I'm actually preparing to repaint a ceiling at the moment. So I've been cleaning, sorry, looking at my knitting, and prepping for that the entire weekend. That sounds like a huge job. So a lot of painting tape here as well, she says. Yes. Yeah, paint. I've never had to paint a ceiling before. I'm sure before we leave this place, we will paint at least one of the ceilings because I don't think it's been painted ever since this place was built, like 30 years or so. But that sounds like a big job. All the power to you. I hope it goes really well and smooth. And that you are really happy with the results, because it does change the whole feeling of a room, I feel like, when you do that. So that sounds really exciting. Starship Craft Room says, went to a Bats and Bluegrass concert last night. A bluegrass band set up in a local park in front of a cave. Then we all got to watch the little bats as they came out for the night. That sounds magical. What a lovely summer activity. Wow. I wish I could have been there with you and had a beer, because that sounds absolutely lovely. Oh, Deb, thank you so much for reminding me. How would you use the stitch markers? So what you can do, I'll show you on the other sleeve. Oh, that's it. There we go. So what you can do if you're nervous about the placement of like where, basically if you're worried about twisting or having it, so your stitches are slanted, you can do basically what I just did for the very first part of the other sleeve, where we determined where our first stitch goes with counting up the purl bumps along a specific column of stitches. And what you can do with stitch markers is, say you want to do that depends on how much you trust yourself, or if you want to be like really safe. But say you do it every 10 stitches or so, or, maybe 4 for the whole sleeve or something like that. Break it up into quarters. And you can just place a stitch marker around the sleeve to where you want it to be. Like, make sure it looks good, make sure it's placed well, and then you just kind of place the stitch marker where it needs to go. I'm just going to eyeball it for right now. But you do the same thing that we did, where you kind of like look for a row of stitches. I recommend putting your fingernail into the middle of it, follow it on the back, count up the column to where you need to go, and then place the stitch marker into that purl bump where it is. And I'm just eyeballing it right now again. But you can do that around the whole sleeve or the bottom hem. Again, maybe every 10 stitches, maybe on a sleeve, like 4 different places. And that way, as you keep going and stitching, you can kind of hold yourself accountable. So that way, like, if you get over here and you're like, oh, they are slanting, what did I do wrong? You can either fix it, or you might be able to course correct at that stitch marker as needed. So that just kind of helps you stay a little bit more accountable with the stitch markers. It's a good little tip. I used to basically do that when I was starting out with whip stitching, because I did actually make a few that were slanted, and it would be so frustrating because I'm like, where did it all go wrong? And that's a really good way to just kind of get ahead of it. It's basically like almost putting in a lifeline, in a sense, it's just kind of that little safety to check yourself. But yeah, so I hope that helps. Let me make sure. I think I've got a separate end in here. Where did that come from? Here we go. Okay. Lindsay, I'm in Ontario, Canada, and we went along Lake Simcoe. It's very scenic to cycle along the lake, and it was nice to jump in the lake afterwards. That sounds absolutely, and all these lovely summer activities y'all are doing. I'm so happy for you. Living your best life. I had a good trip with my parents, by the way. Was that? Yeah, we haven't chatted since I went on a little vacation there. So, we didn't meet last week, and I was in Colonial Beach with my parents, and we had a lovely, lovely time. Sorry, just making sure I'm going into the right thing. And yeah, it was great. The water there, it's like where the Potomac, it's like in a bay. It's where the Potomac River kind of starts to go into the ocean. So it's brackish water, like part salt, part freshwater. And it was like, the water must have been 80 degrees or so because it was so warm. And it was just it was like perfect beach time there. It was just such a nice trip. And I think, I love my parents dearly, and I think my mom watches this live stream. But my social battery in general was just kind of worn down after it. So I'm very glad that I just kind of said, you know what, no live stream during that week. I kind of knew ahead of time that I'd be a little bit drained. But it's nothing to my parents. It's just my introvertness, where I just needed some. I think the day I got home on Monday was like, I was like, all right, to my partner, like, I don't want to talk. I just want to like sit in my room and read and knit, and that's all I did, and that's exactly what I needed. Basically, what I did yesterday too. Starship Craft Room, how was your mom's birthday? It was great, thank you. We had a lovely beach day that day, and we went to this like peddler's market where they have different booths from different people. And I got a ring for myself, which I'm wearing right now, $2. And she found a little ring that she liked for $2 as well. And so that was my birthday gift to her. And it was kind of just like whatever mom wanted kind of day. So we just treated her. We went and got dessert at this nice barbecue place, but they had like really nice ice cream floats with like old school soda. So we got a couple of those, and it was just a really nice time. It was really special. They now live like 10 hours away from me, so it was nice for them to drive down and to spend the time with them. And my dog was with us that the whole time, so she was having a blast, and it was all good. It was a great trip. Oh, I just did my last thing, so I think that was, yeah, so your last one should be pretty easy. Like, it can be a little hard to kind of see them towards the end. But for me, my last one's here, just doing that. And then check it out. Let me turn this thing inside out real quick so we can see it. Oh, thank you, Disa. She says, that's such a pretty ring. I know, only $2. And, it was so hot when we were there. It was during the heat wave. So my fingers were like swollen and it fit perfectly, but now it's kind of loose. But that's okay. It still fits all right. Let's see. So where is nope, not that one. This one. Look at that beautiful sleeve. Oh, that's such a beautiful sleeve. Yeah, she's looking good. Stitches look pretty straight. And also one thing, if you notice, if your stitches do seem a little wonky to you or a little to the side, you might be able to adjust them in blocking. So just be mindful of that as well. But I'm very pleased with that. I think that looks very clean. And so now what I'm going to do is weave in my ends on the other side. Josie's asking, how many rows did you knit for the sleeve? That is a good question. What did my pattern say? You know what? I feel like this sleeve is shorter than this sleeve. Oh my goodness. I might have, I think I knit the wrong number of rows for that sleeve. Great. And I've already this. Oh no. Let's see. I'm supposed to knit 14 rounds for my sleeves. I think I did 7 on this side. Oh, what a goof. But this row looks like 14, or this side looks like 14. I think I must have done 7 over here. That's okay. So what I'll do is I'm not going to weave in this end then, because I'm going to undo what I just did. And I'll go back and add in a couple more rows to this sleeve. That's so funny. Thank you, Josie, for asking me. So this one I did 7, and then this one I did 14. So that's great. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me show you though. If you have any other questions about whip stitching, drop them in the comments. But right now I'm going to show you how to do some weaving in of ends so that you can fix any gaps or holes. So we'll start, I think, with underarm stuff. So I'll do it on this underarm since this one I think I'm gonna have to do some work on. I guess I could, anyway, doesn't matter. I'll do this one. You can see right here, like they're really not that bad, but we do have a little bit of gap in where we picked up our stitches for the underarm of our sleeve. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my sleeve inside out, and you should have a tail right along that seam where we have those gaps. So this is an inside out, but again, like this is, well, I guess you can see it. That's where the holes are that we want to kind of patch up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tapestry needle, fell on the floor, and you're gonna just take your tail and thread it through your needle. And I'm gonna go, this is kind of a short tail to maybe do both, but I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna go to this hole first, okay? And to do that, I'm just going to, you see like this ridge, this is like our seam of where we picked up our underarm cast on stitches. I'm gonna just kind of like go in and out of these stitches, super basic, just to kind of bring the yarn along that line. Secretly, kind of blends in really well. And then to fix this hole, let me see if I can bring you down even closer. Yeah, that's better. I'm going to basically follow along the hole with my tapestry needle, and then we'll just kind of cinch it up nice and tight. So I'm gonna just kind of go through any little loop that kind of follows around the hole. This one, or these two, and then back through the first, and then cinch that together. And then if we look on the other side, no more hole. Look at that. It's like it disappeared. So I'm gonna just kind of try to do this also on this side with my same yarn tail. If you don't have enough yarn tail to get over there, you can just pick up, you know, if you have some more extra yarn, you can just clip it and just kind of weave in both ends of it to fix it. So all good if you have a short yarn tail. But basically I'm going to do the same thing where I carry the yarn by inserting it through some stitches along the way. So it just follows along that seam. Oh yeah, I've got a good amount of yarn. And I'm going to just flip it over, see what we look like. So for me, it's a little loose right here and right here. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. But basically, I'm going to do what I did on the other side. So I'm going to follow, I'm going to go to this first. This is more of the hole. And this is kind of like an expanded stitch. But this is the hole. And I'm going to just insert my needle throughout the stitches in almost like a circle around it. So that way I can just cinch it on up. That looks pretty dang good. And if we flip it over, it's basically gone. So it was down here. And now I'm gonna look at this stitch here, which kind of looks a little expanded. And I think what I'm gonna do is just, how do I wanna do this? I think I'm just basically gonna try to follow the path of the stitch the best that I can. Almost like duplicate stitching over the area. Yeah, that looks good. And then, so I'm just following like along the lines of the stitches that are already there. Kind of like, that's typically how I like to weave in ends, is kind of just following the pattern of the stitch. So doing that just strategically in a way that kind of fixes any stitches that might be gapped up. So as you are kind of finishing up with your yarn tail, that's usually how I like to do it, is I like to just follow along a stitch path and just bring my needle through there. And I'll do that a little bit more slow as I go. But that's the end of my yarn tail. So I'm just gonna take my embroidery scissors and snip that up. And that, let's look on the other side, see how it looks. I am very happy with this. Okay, that looks great. Those holes have just disappeared. Looks really tight. Doesn't look like it interrupted the stitch pattern. It's pretty seamless. So that looks good. Another common problem area where you might experience gaps, you shouldn't really have holes, but is along the GSRs, the German short rows along the collar. So what you can do there is, again, flip your tee inside out. And if you have a yarn tail around that area, you can use that. But I don't really. I mean, I kind of have this long one that I have to weave in anyway. I think this is attached to a sleeve at the bottom. Sorry, lots of yarn ends here. Yeah, this is what I'll do. I'm going to use my existing yarn end because I have to weave it in anyway. Let me organize this a little for you. And, oh, let me weave, thread my needle. And I'll show you how I like to weave in my yarn ends too along a folded edge, because this kind of gives you like, okay, this is my favorite way to go about it. So if I were to just weave in my yarn tail along a folded edge, what I'd like to do is just go along the seam, almost like what I just did. And I'd go up and down like this, just up and down into, really, it doesn't really matter, but maybe the outermost kind of purl ridge of where you joined. And then what you can do is once you get to maybe an inch or so down or 2 inches, you can start going back and you kind of do the opposite of what you were just doing. And that helps to just lock that end into place. And it's really simple and quick. So that would be like how I finish up with my weaving and of my ends there. And I could snip that. And you know what? I will do that. And then I'll just use the rest of this tail to show you guys. Okay. So now I'm going to take, I have a loose free strand of yarn, and I don't really need to tighten up. I guess the only thing that has a little bit of a hole is like right here in the center of, and that's probably where my last German short row was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to find where the gapped stitch or stitches are. And I'm just going to like follow the stitch. So let me see if I can get you even closer here. That's good. I'm going to maybe start a little bit before the gap stitch. So I'm going to start over here to the right of it. And you can see I'm kind of just following the yarn. So I'm going through this purl ridge and I'm following this strand. I'm going to kind of go around like that with my waste yarn here. So I'm going to pull it until I have just a little tail here. And then I'm just going to keep follow that yarn instead of follow that car. Follow that yarn. And that's what I'm doing with my tapestry needle and my yarn tail. And what this will do is you're basically duplicate stitching and tightening up those. See right here, that was kind of a gap. And so this one is kind of the biggest gap. So I'm gonna go through like I just did. And when I pull it, I'm just gonna tighten it up a little bit. See, I just tightened it up nicely. And on the other side, there's no gap anymore. It's like magic. And just to kind of make sure this gets woven in well, I'm just gonna keep following the stitch pattern. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's on the wrong side. And really the goal is to make sure it just doesn't come undone. But I'm gonna just follow the stitch pattern best I can. gets a little funky with the German short rows if you're in a German short row section. But just to make sure the end is woven in. I'd say that looks pretty good. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with the rest of mine. But you can rinse and repeat for any kind of gaps you see there. Let me know if that makes sense. Also, let me know, do you have any other problem areas you would like me to show? Because I think basically you can do what I just showed you anywhere else in the pattern. One other thing I think I saw in the Discord was that someone had a mistake on their on an increased stitch. Like, I'm gonna just clip these. One of their increased stitches was a little wonky on the right side. So like it all fell into pattern, but then one was kind of like off a little bit. That's what it looked like in the photo, at least. So maybe what you could do there is something similar where you take some waste yarn and you just kind of try to make it look how you want to look by duplicate stitching in that area, or even like tucking it under somehow or doing something in the back. But you can really play with your ends to help you fix mistakes and to make it look nice. If there are any gaps in the make one right, make one left raglan sleeve, is there a way to fix that? So yeah, Jennifer, I would say do basically what we just did for the collar, where you can take your either waste yarn or yarn tail and go through the back and just find those gaps. Like say this was a little bit more gapped out, right? Like say these are gaps, and you can just follow along those stitches and tighten them up as needed. I think that should help. But yeah, I did notice there were some gaps in some of the photos I saw. But I think that's it. I think we covered it all. Man, that was good. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Jennifer says, thanks. Thank you. Good question. But I think we're good. And so for next week, I'll just repeat, you'll want to finish up your weaving in of ends, finishing with, fold up your hems as well. The bottom one takes a while, I will say, but it's very satisfying. I find whip stitching hems very satisfying. And the end result, I just think looks so good. And then you have it matched to the collar. Yee, I'm so excited. Josie asks, that's a good question too, Josie. Is there any benefit to blocking first? And yes, there can be. Blocking first could allow you to make sure your stitches look a little bit more even. And so that way it could be easier to follow and to pick them up as you whip stitch your hems. However, I would say it's preferred to block after you have woven in your ends. So that way, when you wash, all of those kind of fall into place as they should when it's all set, if that makes sense. I feel like I didn't say that the best way, but I hope you get. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. Let's see. My tee is a lot wider than I thought. Like it flares out in the back. Do you think I measured the bust wrong? It's possible that you measured the bust wrong. Have you blocked it yet? Because that could help to fix any flare. Also, I would say it could, like if you had, unfortunately the pattern right now is very basic, right? Let me put this up even further. But you know how we don't have any bust shaping or waist shaping. But if you did have bust shaping options, which again, I plan on kind of including in the future, as I'm kind of working on implementing that for the staple tank design. And then I'm imagining doing that for the staple tee. But if you had bust shaping, I feel like that would help to prevent flare in the back, because really we're making this, like you have the same amount of stitches in the front as you do the back. So maybe you have, with your body shape, there's just more stitches in the back than you need. So that could be creating a flare. And if that's the case, I'm sorry. But when you go to block, see if there's anything you can do to help even it out, straighten it out, so it doesn't have that effect. Yes, and sorry, Jennifer and Terry, you are absolutely right. I will review blocking. I think I have, let me just do a quick little thing here. New Wave Knitting. I'm on my website just looking. I think I have a review or like a tip on how to block. Well, I can put this. So this is a blog post. Yeah, I can put it in the comments. So this is a blog post I have on how to take care of bulky knits, but in it I show you how I like to block my knits. And the blocking is basically the same for any garment I make. And for that, what I like to do is first submerge your garment in water for about 15 minutes. And when you put your garment in water, and that could be either in a big tub or in a sink if it will fit, just make sure you clean whatever the container is first. That's, I guess, the very first step. Make sure you have a clean container. And then what you want to do is, sorry, I'll remove that. Then what you want to do is, submerge it in water. You want to squeeze it gently, just a bit, to release any of the air bubbles, and allow it to soak for about 15 minutes. Then you'll want to take it out of the water. And as you take it out, you want to gently squeeze it. You don't want to rub or twist it or anything like that. Just gently squeeze to remove excess water. You can also have an extra towel or two on the side. And what you can do is just roll up your knit in the towel to remove even more excess water to help it dry faster. And when it's in that towel, you can squeeze it gently being a key word. Again, you don't want to give it friction because that could cause it to felt or it could warp the stitches, but just kind of gently squeeze to remove any excess water. And you can repeat that with a second towel. Again, that just helps to speed the drying process. Then after that, what you can do is, I kind of have a blocking kit. So I've got a fancy schmancy blocking kit. It's in my Amazon storefront, which I can put the link in the comments here too, if you're interested. I mean, you don't need to do this, but in case anyone's curious, blocking kits and materials. I'll actually share this whole list in the chat. But here's a little like Amazon storefront. These are tools I like to use for blocking. And let me share me. So this is my blocking kit. It comes with a few different like puzzle pieces looking things. That's foamy, and it comes with a set of pins, so you can pin your knits. But basically, these are really nice because you can lock them together, make it as big as you need for your tee, and then you can follow the grid lines to make sure that the bottom hem is nice and straight. Because when you lay it out to dry, this is like the most important thing to make sure your knit is going to look really good in the end, because you're really setting the stitches in place when you block. So I've only recently gotten one of these. Before, what I would do is lay it on a towel, or even a garbage bag is really good, because towels can keep moisture there, but a garbage bag helps to just release moisture. So just lay out your knit nice and straight, as straight as you can. You'll want to also, like, if you have any puckering in your increases, you'll want to, maybe stretch those a little bit, adjust them as needed to make sure that they look as good as you want them to be when it's nice and dry. And I think that's basically it. And then you just let it dry, and then you're good to go. And Jennifer just asked, you have to block it every time you wash it? No, you don't. The first block should really help, again, set those stitches in place. And then what you can do is just lay it flat to dry, I guess, next time you wash it. If your yarn lets you use a washer dryer, you could just throw it in the washer, then the dryer. remember to read your yarn label instructions and if that's okay. Or even just the washer and then lay flat to dry. And you don't really need to be as picky. I mean, I kind of am. Each time I do wash my knits is I do try to lay it out flat and like make sure everything looks good each time. But you don't have to be as meticulous with it each time, I don't think. But I think that's it, folks. Again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below or in the Discord. And remember to fill out that prize submission form that's linked down below by July 27th, end of day, basically. And I'll be seeing you in 1 week to give out prizes. So I hope everyone here is joining me. And if you finish your, if you're basically eligible to win, I would love for you to be on the live stream. So you can just like pick your ideal prize right then and there and you can keep going. So thank you all so much for being here. And I will see you next week when we give out prizes. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys.